Welcome to the Taryn Reeves Show, the podcast for elite entrepreneurs, visionary leaders, and high impact CEOs who are ready to grow their brand, amplify their message, and build a legacy. I'm your host, Taryn Reeves, multiple international best-selling author, publishing strategist, and founder of Automatic Authority Publishing and Press House. Each week, we dive into powerful conversations with trailblazing entrepreneurs and change makers who are using storytelling to scale their business and impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for a dose of inspiration, strategy, and the truth behind what it really takes to turn your wisdom into wealth. Welcome, amazing humans. Welcome to another episode. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Manoj Krishna, who is a former spine surgeon who decided to leave his surgical career to start Happier Me. He is on a mission to reduce suffering, help people lead happier lives, and create a better future for humanity. Happier Me is based on a simple idea that most of our suffering begins in our own thinking, in the automatic way our mind reacts to the world. So by understanding ourselves and how our minds work, we can live in peace with ourselves, avoid and overcome stress and anxiety, build stronger relationships, make better decisions, and succeed in life in every way. Dr. Krishna, welcome to the Taryn Reeves Show.
Taryn, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Such an interesting career that you've had. You walked away from a career as a successful spine surgeon, a path that many people wouldn't even dare to dream of for a number of reasons. What was the moment, the turning point for you where you realized you had to leave that career and start something like Happier Me?
You know, I've always been curious about my own mind. And I remember feeling lonely when I was 18 and wondering why, because I had so many friends. But the turning point for me was I was driving home from work and the children's hospital in the Middle East got bombed. And the kids were screaming on the radio. And I felt we humans need to do better.
Yep.
You know, we can do better. And we have the wisdom in the world to do better. In fact, when in our conversation, I can tell you in 1 minute how we could end war just by understanding ourselves better. And so I started working with children and wondering whether they would get it. And to my amazement, they got it in one. If you ask a class of 10-year-olds, what can we do to end war? All their hands will go up. You ask a room full of adults, they'll say, oh, no, it's not possible. It's always been there, and so on. So that really inspired me. And I realized that if we could bring this deeper understanding of ourselves and share it more widely, we could help people reduce their own suffering, lead happier lives, and we could create a better future for humanity. So once I saw that really clearly and my own life changed as a result of that realization, then I thought, you've got to share this. You can't keep it to yourself. And that's where my journey began. So I was inspired actually by an Aboriginal elder I met in Australia. You know, I trained in Australia, in Brisbane, for a year as a spine surgeon.
Right.
And at a friend's party, I met this elderly gentleman. And he had these beautiful eyes. You know how they have such beautiful eyes. And I asked him, what advice would you have for a young man traveling out in the world? And he was very quiet for quite a while. And then he said to me, traveler, there's no path. Paths are made by walking. And that's really inspired this project too, because I didn't have a plan. I still don't have a plan. You know, you start walking and then the path opens.
Yes, absolutely. It's so interesting. Okay. So let me play devil's advocate, if you like, then. Like you said, war is this thing that humans seem to be obsessed with. We seem to always have been involved in it in some way or another from as far back as our history shares with us. And it is true that kids have this beautiful way of looking at the world. And I believe it's because they are yet to be dragged down by what society tells us we should and shouldn't do, what we can and can't have, what is good, what is bad, instead of that innate nature of who we are when we're born. Because as we were discussing before I pressed record, I have a degree in criminology. And part of that study is are people born bad? Are they just, are you born a serial killer? Are you born a psychopath? Are you born a narcissist? And there's a whole study around it. And then there comes in the opposite side of the argument, which is nature versus nurture.
Mm.
And it is my belief, in having studied that research, that people are not born bad. It is nature versus nurture, and that every child is born a clean slate, a connected slate, actually, if you like. What's your opinion?
Okay, so I think certainly that children have this natural innocence and natural wisdom too.
That's
So
true.
let me share 3 quick stories or examples of how we could end war. And all of them are really simple. The first is, if someone came to the planet Earth from outside and looked at us and what we're doing and said, you're spending $1.5 trillion on arms each year, and your billion people are going hungry every day, and you class yourself, you think you're intelligent, right?
When you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense.
Why are you so afraid of each other? And why are there so many divisions that you're so afraid of each other that you'd rather spend money on arms than on food, or prioritize that? And it's based on fear and a lack of understanding of fear. Then I was talking to a group of teachers, and there were about 500 in the room. And I said, suppose I said to you today that we're all going to stop eating from now on, and we're going to buy guns instead, because this half of the room is frightened that the other half of the room is going to attack them. They all started laughing. But I said, that's what countries are doing. Right? We're prioritizing buying arms over food. And then you talk to kids and you say, how can we end war? And they say, we have to realize we're the same ice cream, just different flavors. Chocolate ice cream would never go to war with vanilla ice.
Yep.
So suppose you and I are on opposite sides of a battlefield. Say Russia, Ukraine, could be any war in the world. There are 120 right now. And we're about to kill each other, and we just pause and say, why are we doing that? What has Taran done to Manoj, or the other way around? Oh, no, it's because you're Russian, I'm Ukrainian. How did we become Russian and Ukrainian? It's our conditioning. Yeah, it's where we were born. We grow up with that conditioning that I'm Russian, Ukrainian. And we become attached to that identity without our own awareness. So we're not aware we've been conditioned. We become attached to that identity. The identity that divides us from each other. And it divides us to an extent where we're willing to kill each other. And once we realize it's the same unconscious process in you and me, it happened without our awareness or our permission.
Yep.
And does it serve me in any way? See, and it doesn't make sense. Here's a line that we humans have drawn. On this side of the line, in my own country, if I kill a person, I'll go to jail or whatever. If I cross the line in a war and kill like 1,000 people, I'll come back, I'll be celebrated as a hero, be given medals. You know, a human life is a human life, right? Do you know? So once you start thinking clearly about the whole thing, you realize that you can still be a happy human being by letting go of your attachment to your identity. It doesn't mean you stop being Russian. You can still enjoy the food and the music and the dance and the culture and the literature. I enjoy all that here. But chocolate ice cream wouldn't kill vanilla ice cream because we know it's still ice cream. So once we realize that it's what our mind has done to us, it's created our own sense of identity, which we have become attached to, which has divided us from each other, which is leading us to the point where we're about to kill each other. Because somebody who's a leader in my group can tell me, Manoj, go and kill Taran. I'll say, okay, give me a gun.
Yeah.
I won't question it. So the ability to question our own condition is the key to wisdom. Question our own thinking, see? And it's something we're never taught in school. We're not saying conditioning is wrong at all. We're just saying, does it serve us as the human beings? Once you have that ability to question your own thoughts and feelings, that's when you become a wise person. And that wisdom nourishes your life in 100 ways.
So with war, as an example, seeing as we're using that as our baseline, I guess, I can see how that thinking can help us as individuals on the ground and in our everyday lives. And when we're experiencing people who are different to us, whether they look different, whether they worship differently, all of those sorts of things. But when you have the leaders of countries who are going to war and doing conscription, for example,
Yes.
and then there's the propaganda. Like, I'm from a third world country originally. I'm from Zimbabwe in Africa. Where were you born, Dr.
I was
Krishna?
born in India.
You were born in India. So again, like, India's had its fair share of fun and games in that department. Do you think it is possible that one day the leaders will eventually come to their senses and we can stop the madness? Because it's all well and good for one country to kind of catch on, one leader to catch on. But if the rest of the leaders aren't on board, that country is going to get taken over and, conditioned into whatever the country who colonized them, if you like,
Yes.
or conquered them is after.
Yes. Taryn, that's a really good question. And it's probably the most common response of most people who are listening to this conversation. How can we change leaders? So I'm inspired by two things. One is Nelson Mandela, who said, everything seems impossible until it's done.
It is done.
Right? And Margaret Mead, who said, never underestimate the power of a few people who are working together to change the world. I'm paraphrasing. She said it better than that. I think we need to begin with ourselves. That's the only thing in your hand to change. Right?
That is true.
Can you challenge yourself to be a human being first, and then a Russian and Ukrainian or American or whatever? No. And can you let go of your attachment, not your attachment to your identity, so it doesn't divide you from another human being? Just challenge yourself to do that. See what your mind has done to you. It's in your hands, right?
Yeah.
What's not in our hands is changing others. What's in my hand is changing me. But never underestimate the power of you changing yourself. That has a ripple effect in the world. And if enough of us did that in a generation, and the generation is not long, by the way, it's 10, 20 years, we could create a better future for humanity. We could end more. We could have a generation of people who are growing up with this idea, I'm a human being first.
Yeah.
And everything else second. And I'm not going to allow all my identities to divide me from other human beings. Right? Simple. It's so simple. And not only that, will it end war and division and all that, but it'll help you lead a happier and more peaceful life. And leaders in the end are born from the country, from the people, right? They're not separate from, they don't come from another planet, right? They come from the population. So if enough of us, and the tipping point is only 10%, we don't need more than that. If we reach a tipping point, we will find the right leaders who think like that. And enough people start thinking and talking in that way, we can have peace. See? Even today, we could have peace with the leaders we have right now who could see this really clear. Because leaders in the end follow. They want to hang on to power, but their power comes from people.
Yeah.
So if they believe that the people want peace and the people want to live, they want to spend the money on food rather than guns, I think we need to begin with ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. So spinal surgery and working with the mind, meditation, and a million other tools that are available to all of us. How does your medical background influence the way you now help people understand their minds?
See, the medical approach is scientific. And scientific is just based on observing something, doubting it, and checking what's true. What's a fact? Let's use the word fact rather than truth, because truth got lots of other connotations. So, for example, a simple fact is that stress is the difference between how things are and how we want them to be. It's a fact. It's like we're looking at the moon together, and I say it's a round moon. You don't have to believe me. You can look and see yourself. Oh, yeah, it's circular. It's not square, for example. Right? So the scientific method can be applied here as well to understanding yourself. Just looking and learning. And the more you and I look and learn, we'll realize, oh, we're looking at the same mind. It's the same moon we're looking at. Though I'm beginning to understand myself, I realize actually Taran's mind is the same. So when we get together, we say, oh, yeah, that's what stress is. Or my mind compares all the time. And that's why I'm so stressed by social media, because I think others are doing better than me. But I'm not aware that's what my mind is doing. See? So once I become aware of what my mind is doing, then I can be in charge of my own mind. You know, when I ask young people, I say, do you want to be in charge of your own life? Or do you want your past to run it for you? They say, all their hands go up. They say, no, I want to be in charge of my own. I say, if you want to be in charge of your own life, then you need to understand your condition. We talked about it briefly, but all our past influences, how they have shaped our thinking, our beliefs, our behavior, all of that. And our conditioning is invisible. It's like a thief enters your house at night, puts his or her thoughts in your head. When you wake up, you realize you think they're my thoughts, my opinion, and you change. So that's what conditioning is doing. So all we are saying is ability to question our own thinking, our opinions, our beliefs, our behavior. Just to observe and ask, hey, does this serve me? Is there another way of looking at it? That opens a door to wisdom. And that wisdom can be life-changing. So the scientific method is simply looking, learning, and that's what medicine is.
So many people are walking around like sheep, asleep, very unaware and kind of robotic in everything that they do. They're more human doings than human beings. And I'm a qualified yoga teacher. I've explored Reiki. I've done a meditation. I've explored a few pathways, shamanism. I'm just out of curiosity. And I know that I am still on the journey to self-awareness. I don't believe that you will ever be fully awakened. But there is a point that a person, and I'm speaking from experience, becomes aware of their thoughts, their reactions, their trauma, how they're responding to things or reacting to things. And you can't unsee it. You can't, once that tipping point happens, you can't go back. Because I often think to myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be so much easier. I would feel so much more comfortable if I went back to sleep, metaphorically. How does one become self-aware enough to recognize their conditioning, recognize their pattern, recognize, oh, this isn't me, this is my experience of trauma that is now playing out in this relationship, whatever it is? Are there steps people can take, practical steps?
Yes, it's a really simple practical steps. I think it begins with curiosity. You mentioned that word. Just to be curious. We've lost that. We had that ability as 2-year-olds. We'd look at something from all angles, we study it, we just be curious. Right?
Put it in your mouth.
We check it out,
Yeah.
So the scientific mind, the medical mind is just curious. What's going on? All the great discoveries of human civilization have begun with curiosity. So instead of being curious with the world outside, you're just curious about you. That's one. So begin with nature is what I'd say. Spend time with the tree or a flower or whatever. Just observe. Notice the detail. The more you notice, the more quiet your mind becomes. And become curious. What's going on? Why? So to be curious means you have to let go of certainty. Right? If you already know, you can't be curious. You know what I mean? So to begin with, I don't know. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be curious. That's the first step. The second step is to be able to observe what's happening. So I'll give you an example. So there are 3 steps to inquiry. The first is to observe. So Taran, let me give you an example. So say you and I are in a conversation and we're both interrupting each other. If I notice that you're interrupting me, that's awareness. If I notice I'm interrupting you, that's self-awareness. So self-awareness comes from just noticing what we're thinking and doing at any time. But the important thing is not to judge ourselves as right or wrong. I'm not a bad person or feeling envious or angry. I'm just noticing. The second step after noticing is to take ownership of how I'm thinking and feeling. And that's hard. So to take ownership of the fact that, oh, I'm interrupting Taryn, or I'm feeling envious and asking. The third step is to ask, be curious. What's going on? Why do I interrupt somebody? Why do I interrupt each other? Oh, because I like to speak more than I like to listen. And again, the next question, why do I do that? Because speaking about myself makes me feel better than listening to someone else speak about them. Okay. And how is that serving me? Well, I'm not learning anything from you if I'm interrupted. You're not feeling listened to and heard in a conversation. So if we're in a relationship, that's going to be affecting that relationship. And by the simple act of noticing that I'm interrupting, and next time I notice it, I won't interrupt. You see what I mean? So when I see it, I don't see it. I'll give you another example. See, I'm scrolling social media, and when I ask people, what does it make you feel? I hate my body. I hate you. I hate my life. I feel a pressure to conform. I'm less than others. I'm a failure. All of it. So apply this process. I notice all this. I take ownership. So my mind is telling me actually it's Taryn's fault for posting those pictures of the holiday online. Actually, I'm going to take ownership. It's not my fault either. I'm just noticing. Okay. I'm curious now. Why? What's going on in my mind to make me feel all these things just from a phone? And then I notice that my mind is comparing all the time, but I'm not aware of it. It's happening without my awareness. And that is what's making me feel all these things. So now I'm aware of it, I can be in charge of that process. I say, does this serve me? Absolutely not. So then I start comparing myself only when it serves. All the stress and anxiety and all of those things just drop away because now I'm in charge of what my mind is doing. Or, for example, give you another one. And the more you notice and ask questions, the more you learn. So say Taryn is loading the dishwasher, the standard one, right? And it's really stressing me out. Right?
Yeah. How did you know? How did you know that happened in my house?
I
There's
experienced
always
it.
one person, Manoj, who's like a Scandinavian architect loading that dishwasher, and the other one who's like loading it like a squirrel on crack cocaine.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what you're doing, it's wrong. And it's stressing me out. And I'm going to jump in there and barge so much, so I'm going to push you aside and put those plates in the right order. And then you're just going to turn around and snap at me. And then it's the beginning of a big argument. Okay. So I'm noticing it's stressing me out. But I'm going to take ownership. It's not Taryn and the way she's loading the dishwasher. It's the way my mind is reacting to what Taryn is doing. That's the key. See, realization. Okay. And then I'm going to ask a question. What's going on in my mind? Why am I thinking and reacting this way? Then I realize I'm stressed, and it's the difference between what Taryn is doing and what I want her.
Yeah.
Difference between how things are and how I want. Then I ask, why do I want things to be this way? Why do I want the dishwasher to be loaded in a particular way? And I realize that's just my condition. It's how I grew up. It's how someone I knew did load it. Whatever it was, something from my past. It's making my mind believe this is the only right way. Once I see that clearly, it's not me. It's something in my past. And then I say, does it matter? Yeah. I can let it go, you see. Because if stress is the difference between how things are and how I want, a simple question can dissolve stress, which is, can I accept this? And 80% of the time you can't.
Yep.
As in this instance. And my stress dissolves, our relationship doesn't suffer, and so on. And if I apply this approach, all the different areas of my life, I apply this approach to all the different aspects of my life, gradually my stress levels just start disappearing. Because I realize it's my own mind that's making stressed. Or I'll give you another example. I talk to teenagers a lot. And I say, what's the biggest cause of your stress? And they say, worrying about what others are thinking about. I said, are you aware that that's what your mind is doing? I said, well, I said, suppose, how do you know that they're thinking about you? They could be thinking about themselves or something else. So my mind just assumed. The more you become curious and realize, actually, people aren't thinking about it. And if they are, it's their thoughts. You can't control that.
Yeah.
So wanting them to think a particular way about you is what's causing stress. So if you could just let that go, let people think what they want and control it anyway. Can somebody control what you think? Absolutely. So why should you want to control what others think? See, but your mind's doing that unconscious. The moment you wake up and realize it's your own mind that's creating all the stress it dissolves. See what I mean? So the ability to see clearly what our own mind is doing to us can help us live with much less stress in it.
Now, we're making it sound so simple, but doing the work and staying in that place is a very, very challenging thing for people to do. What tools and techniques do you recommend to people? Do you provide to people inside, for example, Happier Me, to help them get to a point where they're becoming more and more self-aware every day and more able to let the stress go and go, I'm okay with this?
Yes. Taryn, it's such a great question. Thank you for that. So in the app, there is a section called the Mental Health Gym. And these are just mini workouts or mini exercises for a healthy. You know, like when you want to run a marathon, for example, you're not going to get out of the door and start running a marathon. So if people are listening to this, they'll say, well, if I want to get rid of stress, okay, I'm just going to do this 2-minute thing and I'm just going to be gone forever. No, it isn't.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
So we're going to train our mind with simple self-awareness tools. So we're going to start walking. We're going to learn about how our mind works. We're going to exercise, do small exercises in self-awareness. And as we travel and the more we learn and do these mini exercises, the greater our skills, the greater the skills we acquire to then do all these things. Notice all that. The second thing I'd say is, if you're watching people swimming in a pool and you want to learn to swim, you're not going to do that by sitting on the edge of the pool. You've got to get in and start doing the work. So sometimes just take the first step. The first step is the key. If you can take the first step, just notice what you're thinking and feeling at that time. Journaling is a really good idea. We have a journal in the Happier Me app that asks questions and you can So journaling, nature, noticing, the mental health gym in the Happier Me app, all of these increase your core skills, self-acceptance, realizing that you're the same human being as everyone. So, we're so self-critical of ourselves. I'm envious, I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that. I'm a terrible human being and so on. You've got to let all that go and realize you're actually the same human being as everyone. So you have the same mind as everyone. All we're doing is learning. The more you learn, the more you grow in wisdom and freedom, and the more you can be in charge of your own and live a happier life without stress, anxiety, relationship conflict, addiction.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit more about kids as well, because what I'm seeing in my own experience as a mum and obviously the friends of my children, I'm seeing that they are experiencing a very different childhood, a more stressful childhood, if you like, than I ever experienced. And now I don't know if this is because I grew up in Africa and not Australia, but I can see that my daughter is 8 and she is very conscious of what people think about her and that she must dress a certain way. And she becomes very, very anxious when I say, you can't wear that. You need to wear your school uniform properly or whatever it is. And I know that you work with children, which is beautiful. And how do you teach kids in a way that learns?
I think you ask them questions.
Mm.
You see, the root word of education, educery, is to draw out. It's not to put in. So we need to become super humble to start and realize the 8-year-old and me, we're the same human being deep down.
Mhm.
So we're going to sit down as friends.
Yes.
We're going to begin these conversations. We're going to explore why. Why do we think that?
Mm.
Why do I worry what others are thinking? What's going on in my mind to make me feel? So the same things that we do for adults, we do apply to children. And I'm going to share some of my conversations with children. And you'll see when you ask them questions with a genuine open mind, you're willing to learn. You're learning together. See? And or sometimes I'll put the app up and just go through it with kids and say, hey, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? What,
Mhm.
is there another way of looking at this? And so on. They've got an amazing open. Rather than telling them what to think and what to do, because everyone's doing that and they're bored of that,
Yes.
we help them understand why they think, why they feel, help them understand what their mind is doing to them. So I'll give you an example. I'm talking to some 10-year-olds in Leeds.
Mhm.
It's an hour-long conversation, and I can share that video. And I kept asking them about anxiety. What is the root cause of anxiety? How come you're feeling anxious and you're not feeling anxious? And
Mhm.
so what's going on in my mind to make me feel anxious? So in the end, the 10-year-old girl, I still remember her, beautiful. She had some freckles on her face. She said, anxiety is just your imagination playing up.
Mhm.
It's not real. Like your fears don't come to pass. Your mind is just imagining the worst, like it's already happened. They understood the whole structure of anxiety, what fear is doing to them. All right. This is an hour-long conversation, Tara. I went back to the school 3 months later. And I said, we had that conversation about fear and anxiety. Did you apply it to your life? And did it make a difference? And this boy said to me, he says, my grandfather died. And I got frightened that my parents were going to die as well.
Mhm.
But then I recalled our conversation and realized that's just my imagination playing out.
That's so
And my
beautiful.
anxiety went away. See? So if you can, as a parent, lead children to find their own light inside them, each of us needs to find our own light inside ourselves. See, that's the
Mm.
beauty of this work. And that's what makes it harder. I can't tell you what water tastes like. You can read 100 books about it. It's not going to tell you the difference.
No.
Reading 100 books on swimming isn't going to teach you how to swim. You need to
Mhm.
get in the water and get started. So similarly, we need to help children find their own light. We need to help other adults find it. We need to find our own light in ourselves. And that light is simple. It comes from learning about your own. Not
Mm.
according to Manoj or a book or philosophy, just as it is, like we look at the moon together. Oh, we notice it's round. Okay, that's a step. First step, do you know what I mean? And so on.
Mhm.
Or like my mind is conditioned or it's comparing all. How is that serving me? Where else is it applicable in life? And so on.
Mm.
It's so simple, but the impact, Tara, is completely life-changing. And that's what
Uh,
kids tell me.
yeah. And does Happier Me, the work that you do, have a section for kids?
Yes, so we've got a separate section for adults and teenagers. It can be downloaded today and available. And there's a free trial and all that. And you can see all the success stories of people who found that this understanding can be life-changing. So all
Mm.
we're doing is giving you the tools to understand yourself and how your mind works and apply that to transforming your own,
Mm.
rather
Beautiful.
than telling you what to think and do.
Yeah. Now, much of our audience here on the Tara Reef Show are entrepreneurs and leaders. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how they apply these principles to grow, not just in business, but in emotional intelligence as well, because I believe emotional intelligence is something that a lot of people are lacking, not just business owners, but that I believe make better leaders.
Yes, absolutely. So you see, in the end, it's the soft skills that determine your success.
Mm-hmm.
Research suggests it's up to 80%.
Mm.
The
Interesting.
ability to listen deeply, work with teams, deal with pressure, be resilient, think clearly, make better decisions.
Yeah.
If I'm irritated with you, I'm gonna fire you as an employee. You know what I mean? Or if I'm angry or if I'm stressed, I'm going to do the thing my mind's telling me to do rather than ability to understand what's happening in our thoughts, our emotions,
Mm.
and being in charge of that process can help me make much better decisions. Like, how is my conditioning operating here? And is my past influencing that decision-making process? Is that serving me? You know what I mean?
Mm.
So on. So we have a whole module on decision-making. We have modules on leadership, on communication. Like a leader who doesn't have the ability to listen deep with curiosity,
Mm.
or a leader who has no empathy. Oh, Taryn, I notice you're having a bad day today. What's up?
Yeah.
You see? Or the ability to connect with people and so on. So, or the ability to deal with pressure and stress. Like failure is always around the corner for all people in business. How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with uncertainty?
Mm.
So for that, you need to understand the nature of fear, because these are all things that everyone's going through. So it's about mastering your own mind. And that mastery comes from this work of looking and learning about yourself.
Mm. If everyone in the world, Dr. Krishna, understood how their mind works, what do you think would change?
It's a beautiful question, Taryn. I sincerely believe that we could create a better future for humanity. We could end the epidemic of mental health problems in the world. 80% of people are stressed, anxious, or depressed. We
Yep.
could end the epidemic of relationship conflict and break. 50% of relationships are breaking down,
Mm.
and many, many more than that are unhappy in their own. We could end the epidemic of addiction, because addiction comes from wanting to escape from your own suffering.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a better way of managing that suffering or avoiding it altogether, you wouldn't need to go to the bottle or pill, whatever else you take. I think happiness in the end is peace. Is peace within yourself, then in your relationships. And if you can't be at peace with yourself, your relationships are not going to be peaceful. And if your relationships are not peaceful, we can't have a peaceful world.
What a beautiful, beautiful gift to give, and what a beautiful vision. I would love for that to become reality. And like you said, it only starts with a small portion of us doing the work on ourselves every day. And it's messy. It's not pretty. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but the results and the impact are phenomenal, not only for you, but for that ripple effect of the people that you touch in your everyday life.
Yes. Yes. So if people are listening and they would like to help, why not introduce Happier Me to your schools where you're working, or organizations, or reach out to me and say, how can we work together? We're tiny, but I really believe if a few human beings got together and started walking this path, that we could together make a huge impact.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm going to put the link to get in touch with Dr. Krishna in the show notes, the link to the Happier Me platform, which is downloadable on Android and Apple. Dr. Krishna, before we leave each other for this particular conversation for the day, we have a tradition on this podcast called the book drop. And I believe that you've written your own book as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got 2 books I've written. The first is called Understanding Me, Understanding You, an inquiry into being human, because I believe we're all the same human beings. And then the second book was called Stress Free, how we can apply this learning about ourselves to live a life without stress. And as you know, stress is not just an inconvenience. Stress is shortening our lifespan.
It is.
Stress is impact is 50% of all diseases are linked to stress.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the work that you did as a spinal surgeon and now you're doing as a advocate for helping people change the way that their mind works with them to create happiness. Dr. Krishna, I think you are fabulous. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Taryn Reeve Show. If today's episode lit a fire in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story that could transform your business. If you're ready to write the book that positions you as the go-to authority in your industry, visit automaticauthority.com to find out how we can help you make it happen. Until next time, keep owning your story, leading with impact, and building a legacy.